What if I told you that the key to building momentum in real life is hidden in a pixelated video game about punching trees? And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, I am referring to a popular game called Minecraft, which I hear about all the time from a lot of my in person clients. A lot of the people that work with me tend to be a little bit more introverted, although I work well with extroverts as well. But I learn all about video games from them. And for today's solo podcast episode, I kind of wanted to dive into the correlations, some of the crossover between a game like Minecraft and pursuing your goals with fitness, nutrition, mindset, even the career stuff that sometimes I talk about. So, Minecraft, for the people who don't know, is an open world that rewards exploration, consistency, and creativity. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that we live our lives kind of like a survival game. We start with nothing, we figure it out, and hopefully we build something that lasts. So today I'm breaking down that Minecraft accidentally teaches us about movement, momentum, and finding community in real life. So let's get into it. Here we go. Now, I had to do a little bit of research to prepare for this because, as I've said, I have yet to play Minecraft. My nieces play it, or have in the past. They may have grown out of it. I'm not 100% sure. But the spawn point and survival mode refers to how Minecraft drops you into the world with nothing. Just like how most people start their fitness or life journey. It's a lot like how somebody might feel when they're starting a journey with their fitness. Maybe they're going to the gym for the first time. They have no connections. They don't know what the environment is like. They have no expectations. They might have expectations that are made up in their head, but they don't have realistic expectations as it relates to the place that they're going. Because a lot of things get blown out of proportion when you play that telephone game where the messaging gets changed with each person that it gets told to, and very few people have first-hand experience. Kind of like that analogy where we talk about, do you have skin in the game? Would you take advice from somebody who doesn't? So with regards to my experience that I can speak to, I've gone to more than several dozen places that serve fitness and some kind of nutrition for the first time by myself. I've gone to bar studios that's like basically dance-based fitness. I've gone to Pilates studios. I've gone to countless yoga studios, gone to spin studios. I've done boxing. I like doing jujitsu. You name it, I've done it. Ninja warrior, axe throwing, fitness conventions, fitness conferences, commercial gyms, city gyms, private gyms, small gyms, home gyms, fancy gyms, economical gyms, gyms with a lot of people, gyms with 4 people, private gyms, public gyms, all of it. So you get dropped into this world and you have no plan, no map, just instinct and trial and error. And that's kind of life sometimes, which I think sometimes we forget because most people overcomplicate getting started. And you don't need perfect conditions. You just need to start, as they do in Minecraft, punching trees. And honestly, if somebody was coming to me for advice in any category, I would just say just do it. A lot of the hesitancy in doing it comes from people who've never done anything. Whereas the people who've done something substantial will always tell you to just do it. And if you want to know whether that's true or not, if you go back into past episodes of the podcast, very few people said, I would wait. I would probably just wait. If you were to go through all the different sound bites and listen to the people who started their business or who started training or who put themselves out there or did something different that made them stand out, none of them said, wait about a quarter of a year or wait 2 years. They might have said that within something that was with regards to reaching a goal faster, but as far as that day one, that first step, they're likely not going to be the ones to talk you out of it. So now we're going to dive into the creative mode versus the survival mindset. Now, as it relates to Minecraft, creative mode is unlimited resources, easy to build anything. But in real life, we're in survival mode, juggling jobs, fatigue, fear, and unpredictability. I like to think of life in seasons. And so if you are in your 20s, your teens, your seasons are the changing of your interpersonal connections, whether these people are going to be in your life forever or maybe they're just in your life for like your school age years, that can come with a lot of emotional baggage. The expectations of you on yourself versus what you think people around you have on you. What I will say is, if you're in the younger demographic, I'm going to say that the people who surround you, no matter how critical it may seem that they are of you, they just want you to be happy. And based on what they know about life, stability creates happiness. But they have a lot of faith in you to be able to create stability in any path that you choose. So if you feel like you have to do things a certain way to make people around you happy, just remember their goal is just for you to be happy. And so if you want to go out and do something different, if you want to walk the path less traveled, as long as you are happy and as long as you are progressively creating stability for yourself while realizing that it is not a linear path. There will be some instability on that route to stability, and that pertains to everybody, no matter what industry, career path they choose, especially with all the changes coming into the world. But I just wanted to toss that one in there because not many people speak to it, so I thought I would. Now, fitness and mindset coaching help shift people from survival to applied creativity. And this is kind of in my wheelhouse. So for me, I juggle so many different things, not only leading up to this year, but primarily in this year throughout my entire career in the fitness industry, which is getting to be a few years now. Like it's about 7 to 8 years, 7 to 8, I should say, not 78. But during that time, I've always worn multiple hats, not just like literally, but in terms of I've always had one foot in the door of creative work like social media, contracting, writing, blog creation, and then that kind of evolved into consulting, video editing, and then it grew into not only hosting the podcast but also producing several others. But that's not all, because I work with people in person and I work with people online on their fitness and nutrition. I use very client-centered coaching, which means that you don't have to fit into a box to work with me, but I'm going to hold you to a higher standard by helping you to fit into a model that suits your life. So if you work shift work, well, we're going to adapt a model that works with shift work. If you have certain like food preferences or allergies, the suggestions that I make are going to be for you. They're not going to be for somebody who's not you. And the ideal outcome would be that we would get progressive positive changes. And sometimes all that looks like is you get more familiar with the food that you're eating, or you get more familiar with the movement that you currently have, and we'll look at ways to make it improve over time. And because we are collaboratively looking at ways for it to improve over time, and because we have a structure and a way to make progress and progressions, that's what essentially guarantees the outcome. Like, there are very few scenarios where we can't guarantee the outcome as long as we're both participating. And I don't leave anybody on red, so you can count on me to participate on my end. Now, where this can apply to you is that sometimes we feel like being in survival mode is just the state of being. And we kind of lose sight of how society has changed over the years, where in the past you simply needed to have a sense of purpose, you lived that out, and then for a majority of your life you were able to do some of the things that enrich life the most. being able to do stuff with friends and family, doing activities outside just because that's what you like to do, not because you needed like a time filler or because somebody told you to or because corporate recommended it. Like now, a lot of things are out of obligation. In the past, it was more sort of a deep sense of purpose. People showed their kids how to do athletic things because that's how the kid would learn. And now we're kind of thinking like the kid's going to learn off YouTube, or they're just going to magically like be able to do it, or maybe we need to put them in with some other system or structure so that they can learn in that way. But I like first and foremost, I will say it takes like a village to support anybody, whether they are a young person or someone in their 40s starting a business, whoever it is, it takes more than one person. But I will also say that the more that you can find ways for you to lead by example, the more that ripple effect is really, really powerful. So even if you don't have aspirations to be a professional athlete, if you can be someone who regularly gets like 16,000 steps per day, is able to exceed 110 grams of protein per day, which is, in my opinion, on the lower end, but it's on an end where if 90% of the population did that, a lot of those people would experience improvements in their general quality of life. And that conclusion is simply based off of the number of people that I've worked with and that many of my friends and colleagues have worked with who are deficient in protein. Now, the caveat there is to get sufficient protein, the best way to do that is through whole foods. Because not only does that get you better nutrient quality, but also in a roundabout way, like if I had to get, let's say, 200 grams of protein, which is generally my target that I have to aim for, I'm not only going to get that from like meat-based protein sources, I'll also use some dairy-based protein sources, and then I will look for vegetables and legumes and nuts and stuff that are higher in protein. Not as my sole source of protein, but they would double as like my source of healthy fats, my source of fiber, my source of carbohydrates, because that's what kind of balances out that whole macronutrient profile. But to get us back on track, when we're thinking about this through the lens of Minecraft, let's talk about stacking small wins. So blocks become castles. You start with something small, you add it up, add it up, add it up, and it becomes something bigger. And it's easier to visualize in a video game, but the same is very much true in life. For me, like my whole mantra, during my fitness training career, has been to be less dumb. It has been nothing more glamorous than that because I was so concerned about being good enough for like my colleagues and earning the respect of my clients and retaining people, like making sure that they didn't feel like I was ripping them off or that they had been swindled, but that they were being served for whatever period of time that they needed my help, that they hired me for. And even in some cases, like if I can be helpful to people beyond that period of time, even if it's just as being like a warm connection that they know that they can always reach out to, that's valuable to me as well. So Minecraft rewards small, consistent actions block by block. And I think when you're pursuing a fitness or nutrition goal, in some way, shape, or form, you should do that as well. The thing to be mindful about is that a lot of people will correlate a reward with like a food-based treat. And that can work, but it can only work if the treat that you are choosing most often aligns with your nutrition goals. So if my reward for a daily win was always going to be a donut, I should say, the donut would not align with my food-based goals because I would not be able to reach my protein goal based on the calorie footprint unless I made some kind of like amazing protein-based donut. But even then, I might be deficient in fiber. There's a lot of factors to look at, and so then we have to do big picture thinking. And so then instead of rewarding yourself with food, what if you reward yourself with experiences? One of my favorite parts of the day is when I get to connect with people. And depending on the season of life, depending on the context, who I connect with can change. So on every given day, I'll usually keep tabs of the people that I work with online, the people that I help, the people that I collaborate with, everybody that I'm connected to in some context. So without that, I would feel a little bit empty. But I wouldn't say that that is the thing that makes things look different. It's sort of like one of those baseline connections. So maybe that wouldn't be the win. But maybe the win would be a rare connection, a reconnection, maybe getting together with an old friend that you hadn't seen in a long time and you put it off for a while. Like I have some close friends where we have like quarterly visits or like once every 6 months or in some cases once every 2 years. But they're some of the best people that I know. And so if I reconnected with them, that would feel like a reward. Even if it was like over like a video call, which it's funny with how tech inclined that I am and with how I do video calls so much for work, I don't do them as much when it comes to the work or just my interpersonal communication personally. So if you're looking for a way to celebrate a small win, maybe connecting with somebody who is important to you. Maybe it could be sort of celebrating yourself by strengthening a skill or adding to like your repertoire for what helps you enhance a skill. This is twofold. So if you want it to cost nothing and you want to enhance a skill, then you commit to volunteering. But you choose volunteering that's fulfilling to you. And through that, it could be like your little reward. But if that's not how your brain works, the way that you could reward yourself for a small win while also enhancing a skill could be that you practice your skills at music or at language. Maybe you've accomplished a big win and you practice a few lessons on Duolingo, and that's your reward. Because we don't always have time for these things, so maybe making time for those things would be the thing. And if you're thinking, why would I make time for that? For the exact same reason that a lot of people make time to go get ice cream or to get a donut, etc., etc. One thing isn't better than the other. One is more strategic than the other as it pertains to your lifestyle goals. And it doesn't mean that you can't do both at some point in your life. It just means that you have to be strategic as to where and when you place those things. So if you leave the doors wide open to having a food item every single time you have a win, then there's no control of your outcomes. If you have it be that when you see friend blank, that's when you get a donut, and you don't worry about which donut you got, you don't worry whether you got one or two, that puts some constraints that helps you stay on track. Because if you know that life has only afforded you to be able to see this individual like maybe once a year, once every couple of years, that action that happens when you see that friend will not have that much of an effect on the time that follows. The only thing that I would say to be careful with is if that activity or a thing or substance that you'd be partaking in with that person could snowball or has a history of snowballing. So an example being like if you go to a bakery and you get a dozen cookies because you're like, oh man, this is the best time ever. And then you take them home and then you have them in your freezer. And every time you think of your friend, you're thinking about the cookies. So you're like, oh man, I really like that friend. I better stock up on those cookies again. Like if that kind of a snowball thing takes off, or if it's substance related where when you think of the friend, you go get the thing and you just keep the train rolling. Some people will think of good memories when they had wine with a friend. I'm like, oh, you know what I should finish today off with? Some wine. And this could be, like, this could seem like I'm really diving down a rabbit hole here. But what I can tell you is a lot of people struggle with finding the line as to when to indulge and when not to indulge, how to celebrate a win in a sustainable way, and how celebrating a win in an unsustainable way can snowball and kind of passively take you off of your ideal outcome. Because when a lot of people start to think to themselves, maybe I should work with somebody like Chris, maybe I should be on a different path, maybe I should be thinking about my health more differently. When they're thinking about that to themselves, they aren't like, wow, I'm so glad that I did this. Like, I'm so glad that I'm in the position that I'm in. In most cases, there's a lot of like just hard looks in the mirror, a lot of reflection of like, if only this didn't happen, or if only I was just more disciplined like all those other people on Instagram. But I think one of the best things about working with a coach with high emotional intelligence, with life experience, who's had to navigate a lot of different things where so many things take up your time and you have to make tough decisions, is that like I'm not going to make you feel like you taking care of yourself is something more difficult than it needs to be. I'm going to remove as much of the friction as I can, and I'm going to get to know your situation as much as I can so that I can set you up to stack those small wins so that we can gather enough that the compound effect of all those small wins would be substantial enough for you to feel really, really proud of yourself in a year's time. And a year might seem like a long time, but if you stacked up 30 small wins in a row within a month's time, you'd probably notice something substantial within yourself there too. Even if it was something hard to notice, like reduced blood pressure or increased sleep quality, or even just the way that you speak to yourself, maybe that self-criticism started to dissipate and reduce simply because of the actions that you're taking for yourself. So all these things are important. Now, when we are determining stacking wins, like it's going to be important with your fitness. It's going to be important with your work, your career, your business. It's going to be important with relationships. Like if you're like, how can I make this relationship last longer? My relationship credentials is that like I've worked alongside between 4 and 5 different businesses as like a contractor for on average 5 to 6 years. Like there's been some businesses that I've worked alongside with for 6 plus years. Some it's 3 plus, some it's 5 plus. Like I can sustain strong, important, information sensitive connections for a long time. And for me, it's because I'm gathering these small wins. I am looking for the opportunities to improve. I'm not letting my ego get too inflated, but I'm also not letting myself be what a lot of people might consider to be like a sad dog or like a pessimistic person. Even if things aren't what I want them to be, I pride myself on looking for solutions and trying to stay positive and presenting myself as a kind person more than a angry person. So now we're going to look at momentum and how it's better than motivation. So in Minecraft terms, you don't always feel like mining at night or exploring a cave, but you do it because you've got momentum. And the same is true for showing up to 5 workouts a week or meal prepping throughout the week. And here's the thing with meal prepping. A lot of people are used to the idea of seeing all those containers laid out on the counter and it's all impressive and they're green and they're color coded and it's like, wow, I can't do that because that seems way too meticulous and I don't own those containers. This is a real life perspective on what meal prep can look like, and a term that's been used by one of my colleagues and friends, Dr. Joy Munoz. He called it meal batching, I believe. And that's something I've used as well, but since I heard him coin the phrase, I wanted to give him credit. And essentially what that is let's say you have like a beef roast and some roaster chickens and like a fish. Like you'd cook each of those and maybe you'd portion them up, but then they'd be kept in their own separate containers. So you're not quite assembling the meal yet. You're putting the components of the meal, you're making sure that they're prepared. So then next up, maybe you would either purchase some prepped vegetables. They could be frozen, they could be those pre-cut ones you can get if you're fancy. If you want to get the freshest ingredients and be as economical as possible, maybe go to the farmer's market or maybe have a garden. But no matter what you're doing, you would make it easier to consume those later. So maybe you'd prep a bunch and put them in a container, or maybe you just have them at the ready. Like a bell pepper, that doesn't take too long to chop up. Cucumber, that doesn't take too long to chop up. So not everything has to be difficult. And then for things like rice or pasta, you're probably going to have like something like a rice cooker for rice. So that can kind of be working in the background. For pasta, you could, I mean, there have been times when I've pre-cooked a whole bunch and then I reheat it and I eat it that way. A lot of people will think that is terrible. That's just a thing that I've done. If you want to be kind of by the book, if you have any Italian background, if you have Italian background, I've been told do not snap the spaghetti in half. You leave that alone. You let it just sit where it's hanging out of the pot, and as it gets more and more cooked, the rest will fall into the pot. Everything is fine. Don't snap it. They will get mad. For context, I have no Italian heritage that I know of, so this is why I get things wrong sometimes. But regardless, as you are prepping meals, just know that it doesn't have to be like you don't have to look like you are a meal prep business. You can if you like to. If you really are just bottlenecked for time, there's a lot of really good meal prep businesses out there. None of them sponsor this show, so I won't shout any of them out. But if somebody's listening, you can connect with me and maybe you can sponsor the show. But what they do is, in a lot of cases, they're able to keep a pretty good, like, price list. So if you were to buy all the ingredients and make it yourself, it would be close to equivalent, if not just a little bit cheaper than doing the meal prep company. And so sometimes for the amount of time that it would take you to meal prep, it can be worthwhile for you to get somebody else cooking all your meals, sending it to you to your front door, and then you just reheat it and you're good to go. The other thing that I like to factor in with this stuff is, like, if you're really struggling to stay on track and you've done everything in your environment to get things right, so like you've removed the impulse food decisions, you've removed any of your net negative vices that you might lean on, and you've just made your house just like a sanctuary of good decisions. But then when you go to cook, you struggle with like portion sizes, you overthink like, how do I do this? And then you start to cave, and then you're ordering in. If all these things were the reason that you weren't making progress, having a subscription with a meal prep company that's able to align their meal selections with your macronutrient range, or maybe in some cases they can get it right down to the specific target, could be the best decision that you made. And maybe that little bit of an investment could compound to a lot of big wins, because then all you have to focus on is increasing your movement and incorporating some strength training, resistance training. And for a lot of people, body weight is going to be humbling enough that you could spend at least a month on that, and then you could progress it to resistance, and people will think, what kind of weights do I need to get? If you are overthinking it, consider using a bag of flour. Consider using like a water jug that they put on those water coolers. Like, you don't necessarily have to have like investing in fitness equipment as the reason that you can't start. Sometimes it's just a matter of looking for the things that do the same thing, but not conventionally. So you have an 8-pound dumbbell at the gym. Look around your house for what you can hold with one hand that's 8 pounds. That could be one of those Stanley jugs, like if you can hold on to that good. That could, and granted, those are probably not a full 8 pounds, but you get the idea. Look for the heavy things around the house before you worry yourself with having to get the equipment. And on the other hand, if you're like, oh, I just don't have the money or the budget for all this fitness equipment, remember that there are some gyms that are maybe $20 to $50 a month for the membership. Or even, depending on where you're listening to this, there are some outdoor spaces where they have like body weight loaded equipment. So if you're doing like a lat pull down, the fitness equipment elevates you as you pull down. So you're basically pulling your own weight. It's ideal for beginners. And then for people who are more intermediate or advanced, you could probably do some muscle ups on like a jungle gym or on like a bar or a surface somewhere. That if you can do that for multiple reps a day and crush out like a few hundred push-ups a day, like you're going to be in a pretty good state. And as you progress that, very likely you're going to reach a point in your life where you can either afford your own home gym setup or you can afford the gym membership, whatever you got to do. Because I would be lying to you if I didn't strongly believe that improved fitness and nutrition correlates with improved financial stability, improved time management. Like everything else gets better when you focus on those things. And the reason why I have such strong conviction in this is because I am living proof. Everything in my life got measurably better while still having some obstacles when I was able to improve on my health areas. And I would say the tricky thing about this is some people might think like, "Oh, well, like you're not perfect." And I'm not perfect, but my ability to really do work that's within my area of interest that aligns with like giving me a very strong sense of purpose has been enhanced over the years. Like I don't think I could have picked a better job for myself. I don't I can't think of a job that I'd rather have than the one that I do. But then there's always like the knowledge gaps, like things change, people move, there's always some kind of a challenge. So it's not like it's constantly easy, but it's a field in which I embrace the difficulty that comes up and I lean into it. And if it requires longer weeks and lots of intensive work, I enjoy that because I am doing something that gives me a strong sense of purpose. I can feel proud of what I do, and it aligns with some of my strengths as an individual. So, whether you're doing your workouts, whether you're doing your meal prep, self, your personal development, I should say, whatever you're doing, collecting those small wins is far more meaningful than getting yourself into a state of mind where you can run through a wall like Kool-Aid Man, because that's just not how anybody feels every day. There's lots of days where the most motivated people that you know probably have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning. And this isn't cause for concern that like the world is sad and gloomy. It's more so just like a reality check, a gut check. It's like, hey, you're human, and so is everybody else that you know. And I think the more that we know that, the easier life gets because then we stop comparing ourselves to other people. We stop being quite so critical of ourselves because we realize like we're having a day when we aren't feeling like doing all the things that we're known for. Somebody else probably is too. And so what if we think back to like how far we've come or all the good days that we've collected and we just stack another one. It doesn't have to be extraordinary, but if it's ordinary, it's probably going to keep our momentum going. And if it's out of the ordinary in a negative capacity, it could be enough to stall all of our momentum, and we wouldn't want to do that. Now, we would. It would be kind of, for me, if we're going to get like, if we're going to put out a case study of what it would look like to stop your momentum, for me, stopping my momentum would be the equivalent of deciding that I was just going to get like blackout wasted on a cruise and Instagram live the whole thing and then not answer any messages for the next like 3 days. That would very quickly halt all of my momentum. And where some people might think, that's not a big deal, I'd do that, they don't do as much of the purposeful work as I do. And so they don't have as much to lose, if that makes sense. So that just illustrates why, like, if I did all of that, no amount of motivation would erase that action. And what it would take would be a lot of momentum, but more momentum than what it would take to maintain the same amount of momentum that I had leading up to that point. So hopefully that paints a clear picture of what I mean. Now back to talking about Minecraft. Multiplayer equals real progress. And I think this is a lesson that probably takes some people too long to learn. Maybe it's a lesson that some people don't realize that they've already learned, but it's huge. And I benefit from it greatly. Like I've alluded to earlier, I work alongside a lot of different business owners. To kind of like add some context, like I've previously worked with a social media company, but then I have worked alongside Alex McBarity with A-Team Fitness. I've worked alongside Beverly Simpson with B Simpson Fitness. I produce a podcast for Andrew Coates. I've just recently started producing a podcast for Jay Croft. I've done one-off consulting work with at least a dozen different people. Many of them listen to the show. And so that is multiplayer in action. We are each individually pursuing our own goals, but then we're also helping each other pursue collective goals. And in doing it that way, it adds creativity, purpose, fun, connection. And the same is true for Minecraft. When you work multiplayer, when you collaborate with friends, when you connect with friends, when you make friends, it enhances it. So when you're pursuing a goal, even if you have just one solid person in your corner, it's going to make it that much better. So even though you probably could do it by yourself, whether you find an accountability buddy or whether you find a good charismatic coach with a CL on his hat, it's me, I'm that guy. No matter what you do, you are probably going to progress better than you would by yourself. And it's going to be a lot harder to quit than it would be if you're all by yourself. And that's kind of the thing. Just don't quit. Like unless it's a job that makes you feel like you're dying on the inside, don't quit. Unless it's like a lifestyle habit that is noticeably deteriorating your health, then don't quit. You could quit smoking. You could quit drinking. You could quit staying up until 4 a.m. for no reason, but don't quit putting one foot in front of the other. Don't quit aspiring for a better version of yourself. Don't quit finding opportunities to work as a team. Don't quit that stuff. So I'm going to share a story about someone who grew faster and better once they had community. And I like this story. This is a story about my good friend Jimmy. He lives in Montana now. I don't know if he listens to the podcast or not, but if he does, shout out to Jimmy. And I connected with Jimmy because I rode in a lot of spin classes years ago. You'll probably recognize that if you're a long-time listener, but I was a passionate rider of spin classes, then I was an instructor of spin classes, then back to a rider of spin classes. Then we kind of parted ways and I moved on from spin, but I have an Echo bike in my home, so I like biking and I like doing all that stuff. But I found that I needed to dive into a new season of life. But in that time of connecting with people in the spin community, I can't remember how it kicked off, but Jimmy and I connected and he asked if I had the capacity to have another friend. And of course I did. The thing is that time is limited, but I wanted to make time for Jimmy because I like Jimmy. And through that connection, like it or hate it, I inspired him to make some shifts in his career. And I was alongside him for some of the things that didn't go his way. I helped him find ways to enhance his fitness and nutrition on his terms in ways that he could make realistic changes. but the biggest thing was that we both gained like a lifelong friend. He lives far away now. Maybe I'll visit him one day, but we're still able to pick up where we left off. And sometimes he may feel like he is sort of like alone on his journey. Like sometimes we'll have chats and it's like, oh man, it feels like it's just me against the world. I'm like, nope, it's not. It's like you and me and a couple other people against the world. And one of my favorite, we had a few good memories. There was one time we went to a football game together. There was a time we went golfing together. And there was one time when I could tell he just needed to pick me up. And so I literally picked him up. And we went to southern Alberta together, just on a little day trip, about 2 hours south. We went to one place that turned out to be closed, embarrassing on my part. And we went to another place that also turned out to be closed. Then I started thinking maybe I should check Google. But throughout this journey, the talking and conversations that we had, that's when we really like built the foundations of what can turn into a lifelong friendship. And this is something that a lot of people are becoming very terrible at. And I know it because I experience it. Like, I know that a lot of people, they will say that they're going to do something, they'll even promise it, and then they don't. Because there's too many distractions, there's too much hustle and bustle, there's too many things that drag us down and make us feel less than we should be. There's too many things that have an impact on our health, on our mental health, on our physical health. And the effect of that is that you can have this big focus on doing all these things, but if you don't do the things that matter, when it comes time to do the things, you're incapable. When it comes time to go for a walk with somebody and like for example, there are people my age in their early 30s who wouldn't be able to walk more than 2 kilometers. And to have a visit with somebody and cap off your activity with them at 2 kilometers is dramatically different than what a visit would look like 20 to 30 years ago, where you'd get together with like a group of friends and you go on like a 20-kilometer hike. Like, lifestyles are shifting. Back in the day, well, even just my childhood, like my dad was in his 40s when I was a kid, and there was nothing that he couldn't do. We wanted to play soccer, he could play soccer. We wanted to play hockey, he could play hockey. We wanted to throw the ball, he could throw the ball. And then it wasn't until like I was like an adult that he started to slow it down. So we got him on the training program. And then he got stronger, and now he can still do all the things. I would say without any shadow of a doubt that he can probably outrun people in their 40s. Not because he is on performance enhancements or anything like that, mostly because of the deconditioning of some people in their 40s. And the way that I see this is that what if everybody took that as an opportunity to start collecting momentum? The same as how many times in my life I've had to look at an obstacle and look at the opportunities to gain momentum. Whether it's been times when it's been tough to gain employment, times when it's tough to gain experience, times when it's tough to get enough money to buy groceries. Like, I just had to get momentum and just keep going. Like, it's no, what I am recommending people do is either the exact same thing as what I've done myself and can speak to, or it's a watered down, easier version. Like, for me to say you can keep doing the job that you have, but maybe strength train once a week is a watered down version of what I've had to do. And so for somebody to think that, like, that's some bad advice, you should really walk the, like, it's better advice than what you've been currently listening to. And it has a much higher chance of having a positive outcome than what you're currently doing. Because if what you're currently doing was working, then what I was saying earlier wouldn't catch your attention the way that it did. And I think this is kind of like, if I was ever to be the bad cop, that would be me being bad cop, finding ways to help you understand that it's not me in the way, it's not my fault. If something is getting your attention, if something is like, how could he? Then it's just a matter of you looking for ways that you personally can start to gather momentum. And in most cases, getting momentum in multiplayer mode is going to be the most effective. But if you really want to do it by yourself, I'm just telling you, it's really tough when you do it by yourself. Like all the people that hire me on as their coach, their trainer, as a contractor, as a consultant will agree. So now our last example here is that zombies will come. Build anyway. Like I can tell you lots of things that have been setbacks for me. Gym closures, both like the prior to COVID closure and the COVID closure, working for companies that just laid me off because they hired too many people, or applying for work and not being experienced or qualified enough, or having a bunch of clients then not having a bunch of clients. There's lots of things that come up, and it's nobody's fault. It's not my fault. It's nobody else's fault. This is just life. Similar to how it could be sunny and beautiful one day, and then the next day you could have a thunderstorm and lightning could light something on fire. Like, we cannot control everything, and we can't predict positive outcomes for everything. So the best thing that we can do is prepare for the zombies. So Minecraft has setbacks, creepers, hunger, dying with all your gear, and so does life. Quitting and restarting are part of the game, so is rebuilding. Resilience isn't optional, it's built with the amount of times that you got back up after you fell down. There's lots and lots of times that I've done things for the very first time. My first jiu-jitsu class, my first spin class, my first this and that and the other thing. And that would be what it's like to restart. And I have no doubt I'll restart more times as I get older. And I hope that you will too. And even if you've ever had to quit, even if you've ever had to pause, it's not like a negative mark on your character. It's not something that makes you less than. It's not something that makes you like not worthy of success or happiness. It's just simply like a characteristic of a human. Even the people who say that they never quit, they always show up. Oftentimes, if you were to audit them, they're also quitting sometimes and not showing up sometimes. It's just harder for them to be vulnerable. For me, it's easy. I don't think it's going to make me a famous influencer, but it makes me a good coach and trainer. So the next time you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure where to start, just punch the first tree, take one step, lay one block, and you'll be surprised how fast it builds. Of course, that was in Minecraft speak. Perhaps I'll have to try playing it sometime, but just remember, as I say often to my dad and to a lot of people around me, keep your stick on the ice. We'll catch you on the next episode.